whole project was about the Taklaman mummies that were found in the Taklaman desert. In the late 1980s, that there was thought to be 3,000-year-old bodies being preserved. They were being excavated and found. And archaeologists described these few days as the best days of his life. And we looked at all these mummies, and we found one that was really intriguing. It was a Tokranian female mummy. And we looked at all the things that we found, and as you see on the map here, that in the whole region of the Terran Basin, that he was found right in the middle of it, in the Taklaman Desert. It's surrounded by some countries such as Tibet, China, Kazakhstan. And the thing that was really intriguing about her death is that she was very, very, very well preserved, more like the other one. So her hair was still intact with the braids. She had long grown red hair. Her tall stature, high nose, and red hair indicated that she was from a European descent, even if she was in the Asian region. The mummy was approximately 40 years old, and she was in the same team as some other ones. And as we can see that on her red clothing, it was a form of Celtic clothing, which also indicated her European descent. And this is just a basic sketch of the Taklaman Desert, and just some facts about it is that Taklaman Desert has an area of 337,000 kilometers squared, includes the Taran Basin, and is 16th largest desert in the world. And a hypothesis we came out of the circumstances of death is that we thought that she was sacrificed and buried alive, because we thought that back then in a very hot and dry climate, people would sacrifice these individuals so that they may be exchanged for like some resources such as water, food from the gods that they thought to believe in, as we can't solely identify what religion they were upon. Yeah.
Perfect, gentlemen. A few different questions from anyone else in your group. What kind of inferences can you now make given that this person has European origin but was found amongst different kinds of Asian countries?
Looking at further that she might have been travelling, maybe she might have been involved in some type of battle where they travelled across, or she might have been in the process of travelling.
And there was also a question of ownership between European and Asian countries, that whether they belong, because she was found in the Asian region, that she would be returned to her European descent and nationality, but obviously she stayed in the Asian region, which this is the inference that she there might have been a society living that full of Europeans that were in the Asian region.
Perfect. Questions? Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Hendry.
Do you have any evidence to support your human sacrifice
Just
theory?
back then, that a common death.
Back then, but are you specific to this particular person?
Yeah, that just the way that she was found, like she was laying down. She wasn't really and there was nothing on her body to suggest that she was that she was beaten, she was killed. Do
we have a possible cause of death at all?
Yeah, buried alive.
Just buried alive?
Yeah.
Okay. And Eddie, can you just tell us a few of the different kinds of things or traits on this remain that we found that was really well preserved?
So yeah, the face itself was well preserved. The facial structure was pretty intact, yeah, that's one word. And the hair, including the hair, was intact, especially including the braid. The man had managed to keep itself intact for around the whole period of years, and as well as the clothing.
Oh, and also I forgot to mention that.
I was about to go to
radiocarbon dating was the way that they figured out how old she was through her. They also looked at some DNA, but we thought radiocarbon dating was the most logical one to use.
Yeah. How old did you say she was?
She was about 40. At the time of her death.
How was she preserved again?
She was just in the desert. She was just in the sand, yeah. That's it.
Michael, question? Who, what, where, when, why, how? Anything to start you off there? I'll come back to you. I'll go to Joshua and then I'll come back to you.
How exactly did they find her in the Desert 16, as the desert was pretty huge?
They were just excavating. Through the use of technology, they found that the way that the desert was, that they started excavating, and they found one, and they kept going. They found more.
And what year was that?
Late 1890s.
Okay. Yeah, Alfredo?
Was she buried with a group of the other technical?
She was found in a not together, but they were very close.
In the same region.
Yeah.
Would that support the debate that there might be some kind of sacrifice at play there if there are more than one person?
Usually people sacrifice one for exchange.
And I don't think many of the others had any revealing marks, had been stab wounds or anything like that on them, so they all seem to have been like found in the same state as each other. So
Was there any evidence of like poison in the body at all?
There was no evidence. They just found that. That's why she was so very well preserved, because there was nothing like in that within terms of poison or something. Yeah, that's why we believe it's our inference. Like it's not confirmed how she died, but we believe that she was buried alive.
If there was a poison in there, they obviously would have found something in the body because over time the poison would have decomposed the body. So if it was some type of poisoning in the body would be some sort of the form. So we can rule that out as the body was well preserved and well intact.
Can I just make one comment on this, if that's all right? Boys, if you get a chance to maybe look at least one case study in a bit more depth, I recommend you look at the Tarim Basin or the Taklamakan, particularly when it comes to historiographical issues, when we talk about how the present can impact upon our interpretation of the past. The Chinese government at the moment, this area is an area amongst a group of people called the Uyghurs, who are separatists. They're trying to break away from China. They're ethnically different, they're Muslim, and the Chinese government is very afraid, and this is why they haven't gained access until recently, scholars, because they're worried about this idea that, you know, that this area has always been Chinese, it's always been part of China, when it actually hasn't. I mean, this is evidence to suggest that, you know, before the modern state, and even before the Chinese Empire, there was movement of people from Europe, from different parts, and so we talk about how nationalism and modern concerns can impact upon our interpretation of the past. This is one example. So if you want to read about the Tarim Basin, very interesting topic. A group of mummies like Church and Man here, actually looks like Church and Man, rather than the beauty of Lolan. But if you want to look up how the Chinese government was initially very concerned about how this will be interpreted amongst a group of separatists in Western China. So again, it's that idea of how we have historiographical issues which can impact upon our interpretation of the past and our access to the past as well. So I'd recommend if you do look at this one. It's a really interesting case study, mainly because of the Silk Road and trade from east to west, and it just
kind of just challenges our preconceptions of who was living in that area, and the fact that we have anyone from European descent would just allow us to question how far did that migration take place. Okay, so good questions are posed there. Well done, gentlemen.